Hi.
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 How are you in the UK?
I'm fine. It's kind of a change, but it's good. The weather is good, people are good, and general atmosphere in the streets is good and relaxed.
What's the change to the Netherlands?
I'm sorry?
What's different in the Netherlands to the UK?
I don't know. I did not live very much in the Netherlands. I mean, I've been born there, but most of my life I lived in other countries. So what the life in the Netherlands is right now, I don't know. But
To Austria. You did live in Austria. What's the difference to Austria?
Okay. Oh, the big difference with Austria is that in England they don't have vaccine mandates. Um, they The situation in Austria was very simple. Starting the 2nd of October, I was no longer allowed to leave my house. I was under, say, house arrest for not being vaccinated. And then starting the 1st of March, it was mandated to be vaccinated in Austria, which for me was the limit. I said, well, that's not a country I desire to live. So I left and found England, which is not part of the the EU, and probably decided to try England for a while instead of Austria. So we escaped the vaccine mandates. That's more or less the story.
Why? What's wrong with them?
Sorry?
What's wrong with them?
With the vaccines?
Yeah.
Well, they're quite ineffective and they're quite dangerous. And that apart, I am under no risk for COVID. My chances of dying, when we're talking about the original strain, the Wuhan strain, were like 1 in 10,000. But for me, in order to die, I had to have at least one comorbidity, and I have none. I have no high blood pressure, I have no diabetes, I have no pre-diabetes, I have no condition that could possibly make me die from COVID. So there is no reason for me to take the vaccine. And well, we have to calculate with an even weaker. The virus is becoming weaker and weaker, so the chances of me dying from COVID are getting smaller and smaller. And still, in order to die from COVID, I need a comorbidity, and I don't have one. So that's one reason not to take the vaccine. But that apart, those vaccines are ineffective. The truth now is that they are negative. Their effectiveness is negative. I mean, you have a greater chance to get COVID when you're double or triple vaccinated. Those are the data from Israel, from the UK, from New Zealand, from Australia, from several American states, from Chile. So they're ineffective and they're quite dangerous. I mean, people are really falling dead in the streets. And if you have a word with someone driving an ambulance, for example, today, you hear the most horrifying stories. So the whole story that those vaccines were effective and safe is bullshit. Quite honestly, they are not effective and they're unsafe. And that's the reason I don't want to live in a country where they mandate vaccines, because there is no right whatsoever to mandate vaccines. And they tried it in Austria. The penalty was like 1,200 euros per month if you weren't vaccinated. They postponed that penalty. They will talk about it again in May, but still, it's ridiculous that I'm under house arrest for being healthy. I mean, Corona is going around for COVID for 2 years now. I survived 4 waves, I think, without a cough. So I don't think there is any trouble for me in regards to COVID. And still, in Austria, I'm not allowed to leave my house, which is completely ridiculous. So we decided to leave and settled in the UK, where the situation is quite more relaxed. I mean, it's the responsibility of people themselves to react to COVID, and I think that's the only right way to go.
And what research can you recommend? I mean,
Well, the problem is that I think the majority of scientists and doctors and professors, I name it, they are against the current corona measures, and they're against the way we're vaccinating people, and they're against the whole narrative regarding corona, regarding COVID. But they are censored. I mean, they cannot speak out because if they do, their licenses will be pulled. But still, if you're in the right circuit, you can still read a lot of research and you can read a lot of studies because they're still being published, but they're hidden from the public and the mainstream media doesn't want to talk about them. So it's a bit of a strange situation, but I was lucky, like 2 years ago when COVID started, I had a mixed feeling about it. Something was not right. So I studied several doctors, professors, scientists, and they all agreed with my feeling that something was wrong. But one by one, they got censored and they advised their followers to just subscribe to their newsletters, which I did then in March, April of 2020. So I subscribed to, say, 40, 50 newsletters that I still get at a regular basis. And those people supply me with all the studies and all the research that I need to get a proper idea of what's going on with COVID. And that's a different idea than you get when you follow the mainstream media.
and um, do you think there's a reason for COVID? It's fake or something, not a real virus.
No, COVID is real. I mean, it's a real disease and it targets older, weaker people with comorbidities. For example, here in the United Kingdom, the average age to die from COVID is 82 years and a half. So the average age people to die from COVID is 82 and a half. The regular average age for people to die is 79. So that in itself is should be a red flag for people. So I don't deny COVID. The only thing is that they made the whole pandemic a bit worse than it should have been. I mean, it's not something to really be afraid of. It's something to be cautious for. I mean, if you have elder relatives, I mean, it would be good to be careful with them because they could be vulnerable for COVID. If you have friends that are really obese or friends that have diabetes, or I would stay away from them when I had a cough. But apart from that, it's not truly dangerous for healthy people. So the emphasis should have been on becoming healthier than we are. Instead, we locked people up in their homes. They weren't allowed to go out anymore, which was probably the most ridiculous step that governments could take, because what we need is fresh air. We need vitamin D, we need zinc, we need a proper functioning health, and that will give us sufficient strength to fight off COVID. And instead, they make people weaker and weaker. And as you see right now in the whole vaccinated world, like Omicron is going around like mad. I mean, there is the chance of getting Omicron when you're triple vaccinated is twice as big as for someone who's unvaccinated. So we created a really unhealthy situation in the world, and most true scientists warned about that. They said never, never, ever mass vaccinate in a pandemic, and still we started to mass vaccinate people during the pandemic, and it turns out to be a very, very bad decision right now. If you look into hospitals right now, if you talk to people that drive ambulances, if you talk to general practitioners, which I do quite often, it's a horrible picture that is being revealed right now, and it's scary. So I think our approach to COVID was not the right approach, but governments still insist on people getting vaccinated, with a vaccine that doesn't do anything against COVID. I mean, there's multiple studies that say there might be a little bit of protection for 4 to 6 weeks. Big study in Israel, 2 million people participated in the study. So it's ridiculous to keep on this policy of people getting vaccines, in my opinion.
And is there a reason for it? You said something about chaos and order.
Yeah, I mean, if you study what's been going on for the last 2 years, and if you study what's been going on for the last 10, 20 years, there are some odd things. I mean, there are some things that are not truly in order.
But which odd things?
Oh, I'll tell you. We have to start at the beginning. What happened in 1944 is that there was a meeting between leaders of several countries. There was a meeting in Bretton Woods in the United States. And those people attending that meeting agreed upon a monetary system in the world. And that monetary system was based on gold. And it was not a bad system, but it lasted until 1971, when President Nixon stepped away from the gold standard. And from that moment, basically, American money was fiat money. It wasn't really valuable money anymore, but still we kept the system rolling for another like 40 years. But then the system slowly started to disintegrate because you need a gold standard to keep the monetary system as we know it intact. We left that system like 50 years ago, and it took a while for things to get bad. But we had some crises meanwhile, and then there was a big crisis in 2008. We survived that crisis, and right now, 2019, the situation again began to be scary, money-wise, monetary-wise. At the same time, there was something else happening, and what was happening is that more and more of the world's assets, of the world's money, was concentrated in the hands of a very few people. Like, you've probably heard it before, but like 1% of the world owned more or less everything there is to be owned in the world. And that is true. All the capital in the world, all the money in the world is concentrated in, say, 10 to 15 huge companies. And there is a very small group of people behind those companies. And there is literally nothing you can eat or buy or clothe yourself with that is not owned by those people. They own basically everything, up to the media, for example. They own a big part of the media. They have big foundations that sponsor the pharmaceutical industry, that sponsor the media, etc., etc. So the last 25 years, those people gained more and more and more and more power. Those people have a lot to lose when the monetary system collapses. And those people have been trying to get to a new monetary system for a long time. They've been talking for a long time to get to a new worldwide system of governance and a new worldwide monetary system, because our current monetary system doesn't function anymore. It needs to be changed. But the question is, whether we need big businesses, call them oligarchs, to change that system, or should governments change that system? Well, the problem is, another problem is that those big corporations, those few people that literally control the world, have started to cooperate with governments, say 50 years ago. Because in 1971, when Nixon stepped away from the gold standard, there was an organization started, which is called WEF. It was started in 1971 by someone who was called Klaus Schwab, and he assembled those rich people, those powerful rich people, but he connected them to politicians within his organization, his WEF. And for years and years and years, supported by other organizations, there is, for example, the Bilderberg Group, and there's more organizations in which very powerful people are connected to each other. But they started to develop new ways to rule the world, to possibly rule the world. And those were just ideas. But lots of people went along with that. And then they tried a small coup in 2008, 2010, when the big flu, or what do you call it, the Mexican flu, or I don't know what it was called, but there was, for a short moment of time, it looked like there was another pandemic, but it didn't get through because, first of all, the virus died down, and second, the vaccines they developed killed too many people. So they did a shot at power then using pandemic, but they failed. But because of the fact that they failed, the WHO, which is another organization sponsored by the richest people in the world, the WHO changed the definition of a pandemic. Because before 2010, in order to call something a pandemic, you needed victims. And they took that out of the definition. They said, no, no, no. From now on, it's only about the transmission. So when we have a virus that goes over the world rapidly, we call it a pandemic. How many people die from it is no longer important. If no one dies, it's still a pandemic. So when COVID struck the world, it spread like wildfire, and they called it a pandemic. And as they had planned, they used that pandemic to speed up the plans they had to create a new world. And you've probably heard a lot about the words Great Reset. I mean, it's impossible not to have heard about those words. The Great Reset is a new system of governance, a world system of governance, and it is basically an oligarchy. It is a world system of governance controlled by the richest people in the world, by big pharma, by big tech. Those people are developed a system in which they could control the world. It is a system that needs, for example, digital passports. It needs digital money instead of the money we know right now. And in the end, it will end in a social credit system like China has right now. Because
and the whole world. So there's Russian and Chinese and Nestle. They all work together.
Well, they tried to make them work together, but it didn't work out quite well because there are some flaws in the plan. First of all, they used COVID to speed up their plans. And that failed because COVID is not as dangerous as they wanted it to be. And then they wanted the whole world to be vaccinated, which was another flaw in their plan because the vaccines don't work, the vaccines are dangerous. But somehow, in their way of thinking, it is very important for us to be obedient, to be compliant. And
why?
Because we need in a social credit system, we need obedient people. We need people that stick to rules. And what we have learned the last 2 years is to stick to rules. I mean, we have learned to listen to one voice only. That's the voice of the mainstream media. What they tell you is true, and it isn't. It is absolutely far from the truth.
But I'm not sure how Nestle will profit from me if I be obedient to the rules.
Well, they don't profit. The problem is that if they don't change the monetary system, they will be broke within a few years because the monetary system as we know it is collapsing. And as anyone would do, I would probably do the same. They are trying to protect their situation. And the only way for them to protect their situation, to protect their status, is to create a new world order, to create a new monetary system, as they did in 1944. We need a new system in order for them to survive. And that system, for us, will not be a pleasant system, because it will be a social credit system. And then, if you dive deeper in the question why, there is another question that I could ask, and that is, why does a dog lick its balls? And the answer is very simple, because it can. And that is what's happening right now. Those people have so much power. I mean, you probably heard about the hostile takeover bid that Elon Musk did on Twitter. I mean, he offered $40 billion to buy the remaining shares of Twitter. I mean, you have to think in those amounts. I mean, the amounts of money those people have, and they have increased their property, their money in the last 2 years by like unbelievably, because they have a part in the pharmaceutical industry. I mean, you're talking about so much money that we cannot even imagine how much money it is. And with that money, we basically control everything. And
yeah, but you can have a MasterCard without a social credit system too.
Now, you have to try, if you want to understand what's happening, you have to try to position yourself in the position of those people that right now have this economical power. They will not let it go. They will not let loose, because if the world continues as it is rolling right now, they will lose their position. They will lose their money, because money will be worthless in little time. So they had to come up with a new system in which they can survive, in which they call the shots. And they created that system. They thought it out. They realized that with all these new technical possibilities, we could enslave people again by giving them a digital passport and by giving them digital money. That is a system that will work for them, and they will sell that system to us as a wonderful system. But in order for us to believe that it is a wonderful system, they first have to create chaos. And that is what is happening right now. I mean, you see that yourself in Germany, for example, where it's harder and harder to get all the food you want to buy. Prices for energy are rising, but that is artificially. Those prices are artificially rising. Those people, the people that want to control us, they are rising those prices. And in the end, we will be so desperate, all of us, that we say, oh, please give us a digital passport. Please give us digital money. And please let us live in a social credit system, because this way we cannot no longer continue. It is something that is created for us to feel miserable. And then in all our miserableness, some very nice politicians will stand up, they will take us by the hand, and they will lead us through digital passports and through digital money to a social credit system. And they will say, well, you own nothing, but you will be happy, which is something you must have heard before. And that is what's going on right now. That is why there is a war in Ukraine. That is why the gas prices are so high. They've tried to use COVID to get to the end of this game, and it failed because it doesn't work, and people are getting critical. It's taking too long, and people are getting angry. And right now, all eyes are focused on the Ukraine, while at the same time, right now, there are a lot of things happening that are not good for people. I will give you an example. I think it was yesterday, but maybe they postponed it. I have to look into it. But right now, we're signing, most countries in the world are signing a treaty with the WHO, a treaty that gives them, the WHO, full control of the world when there is another pandemic. So when there is a new pandemic, and there will be, according to the new definition, there will be a new pandemic within a year, then the WHO has full control of the situation. So when the WHO says we start to vaccinate, all countries in the world have to oblige. All countries in the world have to give their people vaccinations. And your Ministry of Health is right now signing that treaty without you knowing it, which is ridiculous. That is one of those things that's going on. At the same time, the European Union is forcing a digital passport upon us. I mean, we had the COVID passes, and people said, well, those COVID passes are temporary and they will go away. They will not go away. They will change into a digital passport. That is being implied by the European Union as we speak. I mean, most countries in Europe are obligated to have that passport by the end of July. Some countries get an extension till September, but by then we have to have a digital passport. Now you could say, okay, we live in a digital age, and with a digital age comes a digital passport. It's not true. Because a digital passport means that whenever you're being pulled over by a cop, he puts your passport in a machine, he checks whether you are the owner of the digital passport, and he sees automatically whether you're vaccinated, whether you paid your bills, whether you've not used too much CO2 for the last 2 years. They can put everything in that passport, and you're controllable, you're manageable. There's nothing you can do anymore. So within little time, that passport controls where you go. It controls what you spend. It controls where you spend it. It controls when you spend it. Everything will be controlled by that digital passport because they will connect it to digital money. The same passport will as well be your wallet. And what I say sounds like science fiction, but what I'm telling you is what is happening right now. And we don't see it because we've been busy with COVID for 2 years. And now we have our eyes focused on Ukraine. And we have our eyes focused on our energy bills. And we don't see what's really happening.
But don't you think it's a coincidence with COVID? And the big tech companies, I don't see how they would profit from the credit system, from the digital passports. Well, they might like crypto or something.
No,
I don't see the connection.
That is caused by the fact that you're still thinking by your old values. You're still thinking in money. You're still thinking in earning something and spending something and saving something. That will soon be something from the past. You have to talk about power. And that's what those people will, because money will disappear very soon. Because during the pandemic, most governments purposefully have printed a lot of extra money. And you must know what happens if you print extra money. You get hyperinflation. That is logical. But they didn't do that by accident. They did it on purpose. They want chaos in the world. And chaos is being created right now. And out of that chaos, they will lead us to digital passports as if it is something wonderful. They will lead us to digital money as if it is something beautiful. And they will lead us to a social credit system as if it is something wonderful. And you say, how do those people profit? They don't necessarily profit. They have no other way. They have to go that way because the old monetary system is gone. If we go on like we did before Corona, before COVID, if that situation would not have lasted for another year, then we would have another crisis, a monetary crisis. And in that crisis, the people that have a lot of power right now would have lost a lot of power. All the power they have, they would have lost. And right now, they're completely changing the system and they come up with a new world order and they will be the governors of that new world order. And local politicians, like the Dutch politicians or the German politicians, will not be nothing but vassals of the big shots that call the shots. And we simply do not wish to accept this because it is so far from our bedside. And we so strongly wish to continue living the way we live that we simply don't want to believe it. Like people who are vaccinated, and I'm so sorry to say that, but people that are vaccinated don't want to believe that those vaccines are dangerous. And I understand that. I fully understand.
But let aside, because we're still all kind of healthy and people who are vaccinated can still understand. So if you're not vaccinated, if you're vaccinated,
yeah.
So what has it to do? So Walter Steinmeier, Boris Johnson, and Elon Musk all want the same chaos.
Mm-hmm.
No.
He's one of the people that's trying to. It seems that he's trying to avoid some things because he's quite opposed to silencing scientists, and that's what's happening right now. Scientists that publish something on the internet that is not in accordance to, for example, the Corona state narrative, they're being deleted from Facebook, from YouTube, from Google. I mean, try to find the Barrington Declaration on Google. It's hard to find. In the Barrington Declaration, like 2 years ago, lots of doctors assembled, and they spoke out against the Corona measures, and you can't find it. So he's standing up, and he's, well, as it seems, against the censoring of scientists, and that's the reason he made an offer on Twitter. He wants to buy Twitter shares, and he wants to install new freedom on Twitter. The problem is that most people don't see this. I mean, if you're living in the wrong bubble, you don't see that people are censored, scientists are being censored on the social media, because you simply don't see them. But if you know those people, and you know that they're trying to publish their studies and trying to publish their researches, but they're just taken away from YouTube, and they're taken away from Twitter, and their comments are taken away from Facebook, then you know that there is something wrong. All those people are communicating with the people that subscribe to their newsletters. But if I did not have those subscriptions, I would not be able to listen to those people. I would not be able to think about their views, to reread their studies, I mean, I would only know what the mainstream media are telling me. And what those mainstream media are telling us is not the truth. And that is a problem, because with that, our democratic values have gone down the toilet.
And yeah, but it seems all really secretive in certain social media.
It's not secretive at all. You can find everything I say, you can find it on the internet, but you have to look for it, because it's all half hidden. If you look at the homepage of the WEF, the World Economic Forum, you can read whatever I say right now. It's all there. It's all out in the open. People are talking about it, but it's hard to find. You have to do some study, and you have to step away from the mainstream media. Because if you do that, you will learn nothing. You will get a state narrative like reading the Pravda 30 years ago in Russia. You learn nothing but state propaganda. And it sounds like a conspiracy theory. And when I said these things like 2 years ago, people told me I was a conspiracy theorist. But right now it's out in the open. You can read it everywhere. Just look up the Great Reset, and you can read whatever you want. And it is all evaluated. There's research like up to the ceiling. You can find it everywhere, but it's being suppressed by the mainstream media. I mean, there has been a major research, a big research, in which they found that during the pandemic, 6 million people, more or less, died from COVID. But 12 million people died as well during the pandemic. It's a good research. I read it. It's peer reviewed. It's been published in the British Journal of Medicine. The mainstream media did nothing with it. There were like 2 or 3 mainstream media channels that talked about it for a little while, and they said, well, those are hidden Corona or hidden COVID victims, which is not true, because if you have COVID and you die from it, you do so in a hospital, you register. I mean, we're talking about people dying all of a sudden, which is a problem. And we don't talk about it. We don't see it because the mainstream media don't talk about it. This is happening on a great scale. There is so much research. There are so many studies. There are happening so many things that should not be happening. And the mainstream media have always been the gatekeepers of our democracies. And since March 2020, they've stopped doing their job. And with that, our democracies are going down the toilet. They're gone. They no longer function. And that is very hard to accept. But all the information is there. But you have to invest some time and look for it and study things again and again and again and again. And then you see another picture. And once you see that picture, not a good picture, but it is there. It's all out in the open. All whatever I say right now is easily checked upon. It's easily found out whether I'm right or wrong. It's all there. It's no longer a conspiracy theory because the people engaging in this thing, they're talking about it loud and clear. You have to look for it. It's there. All the proof.
And but so the government, I think Naomi Klein wrote about it. So the government could also, instead of COVID, put in bombs or terrorist attacks to make better laws.
I don't understand. I mean,
because you say that they use the COVID to make stricter laws and regulations in general on the public.
They did. I didn't say it, but that's what they're doing. I mean, there's emergency laws in about every country. Look at what's happening in New Zealand. Look at what is happening in Canada. Look at what is happening in the Netherlands. Look at what's happening in your Germany. Look at what is happening in Austria, where I had to flee in order not to be vaccinated. I mean, it is completely ridiculous, but it's all orchestrated. It is totally and completely orchestrated to get to a situation that we embrace a digital passport and embrace digital money. And with that, a whole new system will be created, which is a system of control. You cannot do a single thing with your digital money without people knowing it. But that's not the only thing, because right now my bank knows what I do with my money, so that's not the problem. But the point is, with digital money, that it can be controlled. The people giving you that money, they can program your digital money in a way that they can say what you spend it on, when you spend it, where you spend it. Everything will be controlled once that digital money is there. And once your life is controlled, well, we're only a tiny step away from a social credit system, because the money you get, the digital money you get, will no longer depend on the work you do, because everyone will get a salary. You get a basic universal income. Everyone will get the same money. It's not a problem. And you can earn more money, more digital money. It's not money you can touch, but it's digital money. You can earn more by behaving well, or you get less if you don't behave well. And what is good behavior? What is bad behavior? I mean, who tells? I mean, we are supposed to live in a democracy. And if we change the laws of how we have to behave, it has to be a democratic system. But within little time, it will no longer be a democratic decision of how you have to behave, but it will come from above. Some people will tell you how to behave. It will no longer be a democratic system, a democratic process. That's what the digital passport and digital money in the end will do for you. And automatically, you will end up in a social credit system. And it's inevitable.
And the Ukraine has a social credit system now.
They were the first to roll it out in, I think it was on the 14th of February when Zelensky, it was before the Russian invasion. They implemented the beginnings of a social credit system. They started to give points to people to get vaccinated, and then those points you could use to buy something, or you could use those points. Children could use the points they got for their vaccination to go to the cinema, for example. Well, that is practically a social credit system. That is what it is. You earn points for good behavior, which is ridiculous. I mean, you should take a vaccination because you need it, because there is scientific proof. There is no scientific proof for the vaccinations, but you still get points. Children get points to go to the cinema when they take a vaccination. That is a social credit system. And they started with it in February in Ukraine. Zelensky implemented that system in his country. And it is a system that will be implemented all over the world if we don't stand up.
But I haven't read about people going demonstrating for this on the street.
Oh, people are demonstrating everywhere, but still they are too obedient because they still take their vaccination without there being any proof for it to be a good vaccine, for it to be a good vaccination to still do it. So they're still too obedient to this new system. And oh, you can protest all you want, but they'll laugh about it. And
so they're demonstrating against the vaccination, but not the social credit system.
no, because people don't know what's happening to them. As I told you, this is all going according to plan, and people are not. They're looking at what they see right in front of them, and what they see is high gas prices and vaccinations they don't want, and they just see the small picture. But there is a bigger picture. If you don't want to see it, you cannot respond to it. You have to invest a little time to see what's really happening. And if you don't invest that time, you will never see it.
Well, it's really, really hard to grasp that someone would, I don't know, sit in their living room and say, yeah, that's the plan for the whole world.
It is worse than that. It's impossible to realize what's happening. I mean, people don't want to realize what is happening because it ruptures their existence, it ruptures everything, and it's called cognitive dissonance. People just don't want to see what's happening right in front of their faces, and I understand because it's so ridiculous what is happening. It is so difficult to comprehend that no one is able to comprehend it because all our lives will be upside down. The lives of our children, the lives of it will not be the life as we are used to. And we are still clinging to that. We are hoping that our regular lives will be back in like a few months when COVID is over. We will restart our lives, and there might be some financial trouble, and we might have to rebuild our lives. But we will start it up, and we will build our own lives back up. No chance. There will be a new life if we don't react now. If we don't say no to a digital passport. And we don't say no to a digital passport because we don't even know that it is being implemented. But in July of this year, you are obligated to have that digital passport. And you don't even know about it because no one tells you. That's the new rule. That's the new order of things. And they have tried hard, for example, to get Putin aboard of this new system. But he said no. And why he said no is not really strange. Because if you study the history of Russia, you will see that in the mid-90s, say 25 years ago, there was an oligarchy in Russia. Let me give you an example. When communism collapsed, the people that lived in a house owned that house. From the moment communism collapsed, they could go to the town hall and get a piece of paper that gave him the property rights of the home in which they were living. That was good. That was great for the people. But what was lacking in those homes was a television set. And they didn't have any money to buy the television set. And that was where things got wrong. Because some people stepped in and they said, well, I can give you the money for your television set, but we use your house as collateral. So if you can't pay the debt, the house is ours. And those people said, okay, because they wanted a television set. And within little time, there was a small group of people owning all the real estate in Russia. I'm exaggerating a little bit, but it's more or less the way things went. In very little time, a small group of people, say 300 people in Russia, they owned about everything. The whole of Russia was owned by them. And because they owned everything in Russia, they were the law. That's called an oligarchy. They decided what was right and what was wrong. And the situation for people in the streets, or regular people, was quite horrible. We looked the other way because we tried to McDonaldize Russia. We tried to sell things to them, and we made a lot of money over their backs. So we were not interested. But the quality of life in Russia in, say, 1995, 1996, 1997 was horrible. The quality of life was terrible. And that was the moment that Putin stepped in. He made treaties with some of those oligarchs, but he reestablished a proper way of governance. And we could probably say, well, We don't like his way of governance, but for the people living in Russia, it was way better than the oligarchy they lived under. Most of the oligarchs, they fled Russia. They live in Marbella now and in London and everywhere. Some of them stayed, but they are now cooperating with the government. And the quality of life has increased a lot. So right now, what is happening is that Putin is seeing that the same situation is developing in the West. Some Western oligarchs or oligarchs to be are trying to grab power, and he doesn't want to be a part of that. He sees what is happening, and he does not want to be a part of it. What has been happening for the last 25 years is that, for example, in 1989, the West has promised Gorbachev back then not to further advance with the European Union and with NATO. We were still advancing and advancing and advancing. And well, at a certain moment, Putin has said, well, advance no more, because if you do, I will invade Ukraine. And there has been some trouble in 2014. There has been trouble since in certain states in Ukraine. And Putin has said, well, Ukraine needs to be neutral. And the West was pushing and pushing and pushing, and they pushed on purpose because they knew that if they pushed too far, Putin would invade Ukraine. And that was very important, or let's call it the world revolution that is going on right now, because some people need the trouble in the Ukraine now that the whole COVID situation is settling down. They need something else to create the chaos that I talked about. And they are very successful because you see the energy prices rising, you see prices for food rising, you see food being all of a sudden all the food we are eating is coming from the Ukraine, which is ridiculous. But there are lots of problems in the world now that have nothing to do with Ukraine, but the whole situation is being exploited to create more chaos. And once that chaos hits rock bottom, some people will stand up and they will lead us to a better world, digital passports, digital money, social credit system. That's the deal.
And will Putin have a social credit system too?
No, he is opposed to that system. In a way, but because his ruble is getting stronger and stronger, something else that he does, and by doing so, he's basically helping the revolution in the West. Because what he's been doing since October, he's been buying an amazing lot of gold, and by doing so, the position of the dollar gets like in danger, which it was already in danger. That's what we talked about at the beginning of this conversation, that the whole monetary system is about to collapse. But right now, with Putin buying all that gold, which he has been doing for a long time, he puts the dollar under pressure. And once the dollar is under real pressure, and it's really quick now that that point will be reached, but when the dollar is really under pressure, the prices in the rent in Europe will increase. And when the rent increases in Europe, we're in big trouble, because all of us bought like the most expensive houses because the rent was like nothing. The interest rates were like on the floor, like virtually zero. But once those interest rates will increase, and they will increase when the dollar is under pressure, then the chaos will be complete in Europe. But I mean, complete, because we're talking about.
So Putin works together with the NATO.
No, he does not.
He will kill us all.
No, he works on his own defense, and he does it very well by buying that gold, because he's not interested anymore in the situation in the West, because they have declared him an enemy, and he doesn't care anymore. So he's fighting his fight, and part of his fight is to buy gold. Another part of his fight is not to accept our fiat money anymore, because he quite clearly told us that our euro, the dollar, is in fact fiat money, because we're printing it like mad. And he says, well, I don't need freshly printed money. So you pay me in rubles or you pay me in gold for whatever you want from me. I'm fine with it. But in a way, I mean, he weakens us by doing so. But in a way, he helps the fresh oligarchs in the West, because they benefit from a weak dollar. That's important to them, because a weak dollar will mean trouble on the European market, inflation in the United States. So it will lead to chaos. And well, I've said it like 10 times now. From that chaos, some people will stand up and they will lead us to a better world. But the question is, will that be a better world? I don't think so.
And is there, did Putin invade the Ukraine because of the social credit system? And he wants.
Not really, not really. But there were three things that he saw advancing towards, well, Russia. There was the European Union, NATO, but as well the power of those few of the Western oligarchs. And he doesn't like oligarchs because he knows better than whoever else in the world what happens if you live in an oligarchy. It's not good. And he knows that because he freed his people like 25 years ago from an oligarchy. He did that. That's why he has such tremendous popularity in Russia. So those three things were coming his way, and he clearly said, back off, step down right now. And Zelensky should have stayed neutral, and there would not have been a war in Ukraine. Now there is a war. Why is there a war? Because what the West did, I mean, straight away, they started to arm the Ukraine. And let me tell you, arming the people in the Ukraine, first of all, we don't know who gets the arms. And if the Azov regiment gets the arms, that is a really bad thing. But arming the Ukraine is like sending a friend in rehab a bottle of Geneva. It's ridiculous. You shouldn't do that unless you want to enlarge the problem. You want to make it longer. And that's what's happening right now. No one in his right mind would send weapons to Ukraine at this moment of time. They cannot fight Russia. It's ridiculous. So you don't give them arms, you negotiate. You put pressure on Putin, whatever you want to do, you boycott. You can do 1,000 things. But arming the Ukraine, and they did it from the first moment a Russian soldier set foot on Ukrainian soil. It's ridiculous. As I said, it's like giving a friend in rehab a bottle of Geneva. You don't do that. But we did. And by doing so, we created a bigger problem than there should have been. But it all ends up in chaos on the European market. And that is the prime aim for the people that wish to change the world.
And yeah, and what's next? We have the social credit system, and what's with the jobs? Everything is controlled. Everybody knows everything from everybody. Well, and then my social work, I can see, I don't like your guts. I can rewrite your history or what?
Well, once the social credit system is there, you live in a system that is worse than communism. I mean, you're literally you're living like a zombie. I mean, your life is completely controlled by people you don't vote for. I mean, it's not a democratic system. It's an oligarchy, and it's horrible. And the point is that they can do it right now. The technology is there, has already been developed, and it's being implemented as we speak. So everything is there. The only thing that can stop this is us, people. We can say no at a certain moment, not through our political channels, because they are dead. They have gone. Our democracies have gone. They're gone. But we should say no. Just us, and say no. Don't accept a digital passport. Don't accept vaccines unless you know that they're working. Don't accept digital money. I mean, if there is chaos one day, well, let's deal with it and try to solve it. But we have to step up one day. And I think it would be a good idea for every European country, for example, to step out of the European Union. That's the first way to get our independence back and to start rebuilding our own nations. So I think it's a good idea for Germany to get out and for the Netherlands to get out and for Belgium to get out and to be separate nations again. But we're a long way from there because people will not open their eyes. And I understand. It's what I'm telling people. is so far from their bedsides. They don't want to know. They just want to go back to their old lives. Forget it. It will never come back. But we have to do something. And doing something means no longer accepting all the bullshit. Stop looking, stop watching mainstream media. Do your own research. Try to prove me wrong. I mean, that is what people should do. Prove me wrong. Try to. But stop listening to the mainstream media. They no longer do what they're supposed to do, keeping our democracy safe. They're no longer doing that. So forget about them. Do your own research. Try to prove me wrong. See what happens if you do that.
Maybe people, you should divide this the subject COVID and social credit system. Maybe that would be more logic for everybody to communicate this.
No. Listen, okay, my story is maybe complicated for people, but it's not so complicated because well, if you listen to it again, it's not complicated at all. It's hard to believe. But once you stop listening or reading mainstream media, and the moment you start doing your own research and really invest some time in it, I mean, half an hour a day will be a good start. But well, half an hour a day is what we spend on mainstream media, reading newspapers or watching the 9 o'clock news or 8 o'clock news, whatever it is. Half an hour is quickly spent on mainstream media. Just quit and do your own research in that half an hour, and you will see that the puzzle that I put before you will suddenly all the pieces get into place, and it's not so ridiculous what I'm saying, and it's not so complicated what I'm saying, because there's a lot of logic behind what is happening right now. Our monetary system is collapsing. In order for the people that are in power right now to stay in power, they need a change in the world. They need a digital world. And as Klaus Schwab says, the digital revolution is happening right now. We don't want to see it. Step away from mainstream media. Do your own research. Try to prove me wrong and see what happens.
And Africa and Russia and Russia won't have this credit system.
No, Russia will not be a part of it. China has its own system. They're developing that, and it's not going in a positive way. I mean, look at what is happening in Shanghai right now. I think, well, that's on the same scale as what is happening in Ukraine. I mean, it's horrible, whatever, but no one talks about it. But you will have like the Russian bloc, you will have the Chinese bloc, you will have the Western bloc. Within the West will be South America, and no one is interested in Africa because everyone knows that we just have to walk in, whether it's Putin or China or the West, we just walk in and it's ours. So no one cares about Africa. However, if you study Africa, you study, for example, what's happening with Corona right now in Africa, well, you get a bit of a shock because there is no Corona in Africa, except for those few countries where they vaccinated a lot, like South Africa. There's quite some trouble, not much, but more than in other parts of Africa. So you learn a lot from Africa, but at this moment, no one is really interested because it is basically the best part of Africa right now is in the hands of the Chinese already. Because we left because there was nothing more to gain. I mean, we didn't leave because we were helping old regimes to dismantle and put new regimes in place. No, we left because there was nothing left to gain. I mean, we had basically ravished those countries. There was nothing more to take out, and we left. And we said we did it for other reasons, but it doesn't matter. The Chinese came in and they still found little bits and pieces that they could make money from, and they have established quite a big footprint in Africa right now. But in the end, no one is really interested in Africa because they will dominate those people in the blink of an eye because they have no means to defend themselves. They have no, I mean, they're the West, I mean, the powerful people in the West, they laugh about that. They walk over it in 5 seconds. But in real life, it's basically controlled by the Chinese right now. They have an amazing footprint now in in Africa.
And have you been to Africa? And the Great Britain made a contract with Rwanda, no, about refugees.
Yeah. That's well, logically so, because basically Boris Johnson has been elected on his promise to do something about the immigration problem, and right now he has taken action, and he has he has a treaty with Rwanda right now, and there are camps being set up. And what he says is very simple: every immigrant that comes to the UK will be put on a plane, flies to Rwanda, and he will wait there until the moment all his paperwork is approved. And well, by doing so, he's basically living up to the promise he made when he was elected a few years ago. He promised the English people to do something about what they called an immigration problem. I don't know if the problem was really there. I mean, I don't know, but obviously there was a problem because he has been elected based on that promise. And now he's living up to the promise, and he has come up with that solution to fly immigrants to Rwanda first, and they will have to wait there until their papers are cleared, and then they can come to the UK. Or when their papers bounce, they will be sent back to the country they came from. And it's a new system to me. I don't know if it works. I mean, well, if I'm a refugee, I'd be happy anywhere. Well, we have to see but it doesn't sound all too ridiculous to me. I don't know. Let's see what happens. But I'm not directly against it. We will have to see what happens.
Yeah, and the Iran and Israel won't have a social credit system too.
Who?
Iran and Israel.
Iran?
Yeah.
It could be. I don't know if they have the system already. It could be. I don't know. The only the places I'm aware of that they have the system is China. Parts of China, they're introducing the system and trying to figure out whether it works, and then they wish to develop it all over the country. And I know that Zelensky introduced it in the Ukraine 6 weeks ago, or just before the Russian invasion. Maybe there is a social credit system in Iran. I don't know. It could be. If you've researched that, probably true. I don't know. I don't know in which form, but it could be. Lots of countries right now are trying to introduce it because it's their only means of surviving right now.
I have a totally different question.
Yeah.
Why do you think in the US and there's lots of veterans who do stand-up comedy, veteran comedy, and in Europe doesn't have this at all?
I don't know what veteran comedy you say.
Yes, so comedy about being in the army and.
Okay, I don't know about that. I mean, I know one comedian, veteran comedian in the Netherlands. He runs a popular podcast, and but I see no relation to comedians.
What's his name?
What's his name? His podcast is called Kinderbach, and his name is Kenny, and he's a comedian, and he has a very popular podcast. But it's the only comedian I know who is affiliated to the army. I don't know what it is in the United States that they have veterans turning comedian. It could be. I don't know. I haven't heard them or seen them. Are they funny?
Yeah, I should check them out because I did research a bit and I didn't find much about.
I truly don't really know what we're talking about because I have to dive into that. I mean, we could use some comedians right now, so that's not maybe not a bad thing.
Yeah, I mean, I do like Facebook because you have friends all over the world and stuff. And
yeah, but I have to tell you that in the group of ex-army comedians, I have one friend who's, I mean, it's Kenny in the Netherlands. He's a veteran and a comedian and a professional podcast host. So, but I've never seen it as a trend or something. Sorry.
and what's going on in Afghanistan?
At this moment, not so much. The Taliban is trying to establish itself as a governance order to be counted with. I think they're doing well. All the violence that people promised us, that the mainstream media promised us, well, it's not there. There is, of course, a big question we have to ask ourselves, and that is why on earth did the United States leave all that weaponry behind in Afghanistan? And it could very well be that that was part of what is happening right now in the world, and that by leaving all that weaponry in Afghanistan, that they try to stimulate a stream of refugees to the West. And the more refugees we get in the West, the more chaos, and that is well, that's interesting. I mean, the same people instigating the war or the invasion in the Ukraine right now, those are the same people that left all that weaponry behind in Afghanistan. And I mean, whether I'm right or wrong is not so important. The big question is, why did they do it? And no one is capable of answering that question. And it is a true and interesting question because all that weaponry could have been evacuated by the US military within a week, and they didn't. And we're talking about.
But the German army helped them to have their own army. So now Afghanistan has their own army.
Well, they've been trying to give Afghanistan their own army for a long time, but it doesn't work because the system by which the Afghans live, they're not interested in an army. I mean, basically, you don't have an army to fight internal problems. You have an army to guard your borders. And so the basis of every military man should be pointing outward, not inward. And it's the ANA, the Afghan National Army, will never be capable of controlling Afghan people. I mean, there's too much trouble to get that army truly organized, and the whole way of living in Afghanistan. It doesn't support an army unless there is a big threat from outside. But even if there is a threat from outside, they don't need uniformed soldiers to defend their borders because they're in their just with armed with a Kalashnikov, they're capable enough to fend off anyone trying to get into Afghanistan. I mean, they failed twice, but they're quite capable. They don't need an army. The way life is structured in Afghanistan, it makes any kind of army useless. Doesn't work. Doesn't fit into their society. It simply doesn't fit. So you can train all you want, and I've been there too, and I've seen how we trained policemen and ANA soldiers. It's ridiculous. It is simply ridiculous. It doesn't fit in the way of life. They don't need it. They have their own control system. They have their own laws. They have their own way of guarding those laws. And we shouldn't try to implement our democratic values in those countries because we should be busy to protect our democracies in our own countries. That's what I think.
And so they invested all their power in policing the people or guarding them through police in Afghanistan. Or how do they do this? It's family or clans or.
Oh, in Afghanistan.
Yeah.
They're they have, I mean, if you want to understand Afghanistan, you have to go there, like I did, and you have to live among people, and then you start to appreciate how they live, and you start to understand how they live. And if you don't do that, if you don't first become a part of that society, you will never be able to implement new things and changes. And because the first question you should ask yourself is, do we have to change something? Are people in Afghanistan unhappy? Is there anything they are lacking? No, freedom is what they're lacking. They want us to get out and stay away, and they are quite capable of solving their own problems, even if that has to do with managing the Taliban. And they are managing the Taliban right now, and they are developing into well, into an organization that is quite capable of controlling Afghanistan in a proper way. And the problem is that the word Taliban has like a bad connotation. I mean, whenever we hear the word, we start like doing crazy things, but it's not necessary. It's an organization that has been quiet for 20 years now, some more, and they're rising again, and they're trying to be a political organization. And as far as I can see, they're doing a good job, and they'll be fine. And the life in Afghanistan will be a lot better than the life in Europe in a little time. So I think we should concentrate on what is happening in our own backyard, and we should stop worrying about Afghanistan, because people in Afghanistan will be fine. They will be perfectly fine. We should worry about ourselves right now. Is what I think.
And what was the problem then with leaving the weapons in Afghanistan?
You must know that when the Americans pulled out, like what is it now, a year ago, they left, I mean, billions and billions of weaponry behind, helicopters, vehicles, weapons, ammunition. I mean, it's unbelievable what they left behind. And one should start wondering why. Why did they leave all that equipment, all that expensive equipment, all that fully functioning equipment, flying helicopters? I mean, what they left behind is unbelievable. Why on earth did they do it? And they could have evacuated with all their, well, they weren't truly evacuating, they were just leaving, but they could have left with everything they had there with them, and they didn't. Why on earth did they leave it there? Why was it supposed to fall in the hands of the Taliban? Because that's what would inevitably happen. It would end up in the hands of the Taliban. And right now, the Taliban are flying their helicopters. Why did that happen? Well, my answer is to create a stream of refugees to the West and to create more chaos in the West. It has all been part of that big plan to change the world, is my view on the situation. Because what happened was fully ridiculous. You don't leave all that equipment behind to fall into the hands of people you don't want to see using that same equipment. It's so ridiculous. But the whole world like looked the other way, and we went on with our lives, and we didn't give it a second thought. But we should have. We should have asked ourselves, what is happening there? What on earth is happening? Why are the Americans leaving so much weapons and vehicles and helicopters and airplanes behind? Why? The answer is still like unanswered, and that is strange. The question is still unanswered, and it's strange.
Okay, and are you happy in Afghanistan? Yeah, are you happy in England so far? Are you back? Yeah.
Well, I'm quite honestly, I know the UK pretty well. I started when I wanted to be pilot 35 years ago. I started flying in the UK. I earned my first licenses here, and then I went to the United States to advance my career. But I spent a lot of time here, and I like it. I like the people. They're very polite. They're very, I don't know. I think they're very funny. It's different with Austria. But then, well, most important to me is that it's not a part of the European Union. So there will be a little more freedom here than there will soon be in the European Union. Is what I think and what scares me. But I don't know what will happen in the nearby future, because it is a small country in the end. and it is a vulnerable country. I mean, if Europe closes its borders for the UK, they would soon be in a lot of trouble. So they're quite easy to manipulate. I don't know. I don't trust Boris Johnson. I think he is in bed with the WEF, the World Economic Forum, but the World Economic Forum is managing things a little differently here, so it scares me a little bit. But I think for the next few years, it will be all right here. The problem is that COVID cases are going through the roof. I mean, it's unbelievable, but the cases are rising and rising like never before. So, I mean, if you just leave it, it will probably be all right. But maybe they start implementing lockdowns again and things like that. So that will be terrible. But as far as I can see, they're quite relaxed and maybe they'll be fine for a couple of years, and maybe they establish themselves as a properly functioning country in the midst of a new world order. I mean, we have England, Western world, we have Russia, we have China. Maybe that's I don't know. But if things change again here, well, we will be again and go to Russia, I think.
Okay. So did you read something printed about social credit system in Britain?
In
Britain, if they have a social credit system.
Well, I don't know. No, it's not there, and they still have their independent pound, their own money. But I mean, I don't know. It will be once the digital passport is there in Europe. It will be very difficult for English people, for British people, to travel to Europe without that same digital passport. So there are several ways in which Europe could put pressure on the UK to follow in their tracks to implement digital passports as well, digital money, and in the end the social credit system. But I think, but I'm not sure. I mean, I'm guessing. I think there will be more resistance in England than there is in Europe. That's what I think. I'm not sure because I know that Boris Johnson is. I don't trust him. He's probably in bed with the World Economic Forum, and he tries to get to a digital passport and digital money and a social credit system in his own way. But I doubt whether he will succeed. At least I think there is a bigger chance that the UK will escape that social credit system than there is in mainland Europe. I mean, the position in mainland Europe is not so strong at this moment. And I think the people in Britain are in a better position to stand up against what is happening in Europe. And the point is that what is happening right now will happen first in Europe. But since the UK is not a part of the European Union, it could be that they will see from here what is happening there, and then will start to protest. And so possibly the whole implementation of digital passports, digital money, and a social credit system will lag behind here in the UK, and maybe they will get smart just in time to avoid it, and maybe not. And if that's the case, well, we will be to another country, and easy as that.
Okay. Do you know Chris Thrall?
Heard the name.
Chris Thrall. He's on YouTube. I think he has the same opinion than you.
Oh, there's like millions of people with the same opinion I have. It's not like I'm talking something that no one knows. I mean, there's literally millions and millions of people that share my opinion, but most of them, from a professional point of view, they can't speak out. I mean, most doctors can't speak out, most scientists can't speak out.
Yeah, but it's ridiculous. I mean, we speak just now out. You know, there's millions of people that don't speak out. It's like I'm an investigative journalist, and if you would know the secrets I carry with me, I would never be able to print. This is it's ridiculous. It's somehow in Europe a bit ridiculous.
Yeah.
Everybody can talk about it, so we don't have to go to the Great Reset and the New World Order. I don't know. I sent you this article that was from 2019. Why would the media wouldn't tell it to us? It's a bit. Because so they would think we would demonstrate against it.
No, the media make part of the same system. I mean, the bigger media are controlled by the same people that are instigating this world revolution. It's the same people. I mean, the media make a part of that pyramid of money, and the media are fully controlled by the same people that are trying to get to a new world order. That's the reason they don't speak out, and that's the reason you have to turn to the alternative media. And there's a lot of alternative media, like yourself, because you are alternative media, and people have to turn to you, and people have to turn to your colleagues to get to the truth. Because all the scientists that do want to talk, they talk with you, or they talk to other people that have podcasts that are not being boycotted. And there's lots of people speaking out, and my ideas are absolutely not new or advanced, or I mean, millions of people know, but most of them keep their mouth shut because they're afraid for their jobs and for whatever. And lucky enough, there's some brave people like you, like other podcast hosts, that are still doing the job that the mainstream media should be doing. And in this whole process, my voice is not important. I mean, the mainstream media should be talking to scientists, and they should be talking to doctors, and they should be talking to people driving ambulances, and they should be talking to general practitioners like I did. And that is their job, but they don't do it. So, quite honestly, the world now depends on you, because you talk to me, maybe some people listen, maybe some people wake up, and there's more people like you doing a great job trying to get the news out into the world, or at least, because maybe I'm completely wrong, but I am entitled to my opinion, and I have a right to speak out, and that right is being denied to me. That right is being denied to a lot of people that know a lot more than I do, because I'm not an immunologist. I'm not a scientist. I'm not a. So there's a lot of very knowledgeable people that can tell you a lot of things, and all those people are dependent on people like you to give them a platform to talk. Because it's the only way for them to get the news out into the world and to get their research published and to get their studies known. But it's a new world we're living in, and it's a shame, but it is.
So everybody's gonna talk, call this now social credit system instead of Great Reset. I hope in the future, and then we can discuss this better if everybody reads this up better. And because it's really hard to grasp. It's the same, like I couldn't grasp or understand why you would kill so many people in everywhere.
I understand, and it is hard to understand. As I say, start to study, start to investigate for yourself, and step away from mainstream media. Do your own investigation and try to apply some logic to what is happening in the world. And if you do that, the things will start to change in your head, and you start to put the pieces of the puzzle in place, and all of a sudden you will see the whole thing, the whole picture. And it's not difficult. It's a matter of time. Just invest your time wisely, and step away from the social media, from the mainstream media. Do your own research. Everything is there. Everything.
What was your opinion? You remember on going into the army. Why did you join the army? Did you? Yeah.
We discussed all that in the last podcast we did. But I told you then I just wanted to go to Afghanistan, and that's why I rejoined the army and I went to Afghanistan, stayed there for 2 years, and had a marvelous time, best time of my life, and that's what I thought, what I wanted. I lived among Afghan people. I learned about their way of life. I earned a lot of respect for their way of life. It was wonderful, and that's all I wanted, and I got it. I mean, I wanted to be in Afghanistan for a prolonged period of time, and the army was my way to get there. And so I rejoined and had myself shipped to Afghanistan and lived a great life there for 2 years.
And after so many years, did you change your point of view, and or could you give me? It's hard. Why? How people do this? Why? How this happens, or is this just education?
Oh, education-wise, I wrote my book about Afghanistan. So it's all there. I mean, I had a different view on the situation in Afghanistan than most of my colleagues did, which was logical because I spent a lot more time there than my colleagues did. And first of all, I had a lot of respect for Afghan people. And if you have that, and if you understand their way of living, and with respect, you start to see things from a different perspective. You don't fear them anymore, like most Dutch soldiers. They feared them, and out of fear, they did a lot of stupid things. I wasn't afraid of Afghan people because they are actually quite sympathetic people, and so I developed a whole different idea of the situation in Afghanistan than my colleagues, and my colleagues basically wanted to fight with them, and I thought it was completely unnecessary to fight with Afghan people, especially not when you are there to rebuild the country, because we were there to rebuild a small part of Afghanistan. You don't do that by throwing bombs and shooting grenades and mortars and things. That's ridiculous, but we did. And I protested, and I tried to really make them see that it was unnecessary, and I failed. So we created quite a mess, and I wrote my book about it, and based on the book, there are still court cases going on, and there's a lot of things happening based on what I wrote in my book, which was a different. I mean, I wrote my book from an Afghan perspective, and it was picked up, and yeah, it had quite some results. So from an educated point of view, that was probably the best thing I could do, write my book.
Yeah, what's so this their development in the court cases?
Well, they're going on. There is right now there is a case going on of a soldier that stepped up and said, "Well, I shot innocent people." It's ongoing right now. It's a precedent. It's a very interesting case. And then there is a case of Afghan people that filed a complaint with the Dutch state because they have been bombarded for no reason at all, and they're trying to sue the Dutch government. And that is also a court case that is going on right now, and I'm assisting in that case. And I don't know which direction it will go, but at least the voices of those people are heard through me and through their own testimonies. So as far as I can judge, we're moving in the right direction. It's difficult, but because we're fighting a government, which is always difficult, but we're making progress.
And okay, then now I don't know anything more.
No, don't worry. I mean, we could do another interview in 2 weeks' time. Just, I mean, we talked about a lot of things. I would love it when they sink in and when we talk again and please criticize me or tell me that I'm wrong. I mean, I would admit to that the same instant you come with some proof, but I guarantee you that when you dive into what we talked about, that you'll see a lot of bad things and you'll probably, I don't know, it's still, we can still change things, and I think you help people changing things by at least giving me the chance to talk, and it's lovely, and call me anytime and we talk again, and I love talking to you.
And I have another question about
One more.
because do you believe that there's biolabs in Ukraine, because there's none in Saddam Hussein's biolabs were never found?
I know for a fact that there is a lot of money invested in that particular branch in Ukraine. We will just have to wait for what is coming out. I'm not 100% sure that those biolabs are there. It wouldn't surprise me if they are there. I mean, it's like a situation where there's many hoof prints going out and few hoof prints coming out. Many hoof prints going in and few hoof prints coming out. I still don't know. I wouldn't surprise me if those biolabs were there. If you see the randomness with which the Russian army is getting into Ukraine, it's at different positions at different times, and there's logic is lacking unless they have purposes in those areas. Mariupol, there is a problem right now. It wouldn't surprise me if things are being found that are curious. I mean, there is a lot happening about. It wouldn't surprise me for those biolabs to be there, but 100% proof I don't have. I mean, it's a matter of waiting, and we'll see. I'm not. It wouldn't surprise me.
Okay. Then yeah. Then thank you so much. And what are you actually doing? And
I'm writing, as I always do. I write my my blogs and busy with a new book. Writing. That's what I fill my days with.
and what's your blog? Is that in English as well?
Yeah, I write them in Dutch. I try to translate as many as I can in English. So you find them on my website. There you find the blogs, but I'm lagging behind with my translations. I mean, it cost me a lot of time to translate them in English, but I try to produce at least a blog a week in English. So I produce like a Dutch blog every 3 weeks. So I'm slowly catching up. And within a few weeks, I will have as many English blogs as Dutch blogs, and they're mostly about my traveling over Europe and my thoughts about, well, what we discussed today, the digital passports and whatever more. I mean, that's basically what I philosophize about in the blogs.
Okay, then have a lovely day.
And you too, and have a lovely Easter. And
yeah.
I would love to talk to you again. Just call me any moment.
Okay.
Okay.
Bye. Thanks.
Bye bye.